Welcome to the Asheville View. I'm your host, Aisha Adams, and today we are in the Center for Craft looking at some really special gallery exhibits. I'm joined here by two of my friends who are chair makers. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into chair making?
My name is Robell and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I got into chair making through construction work, was kind of like what I chose to do mostly as an adult, and I realized I really liked working with my hands, so I got interested in furniture about 10 years ago.
So do you make all kinds of furniture or just chairs?
So I used to make all kinds of furniture up until a couple years ago, really with the grant that we received from the Center for Craft, and that really started me down the path of making chairs and kind of like uncovering sort of a lost history of Black chair makers.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to learn more about that. So Tell me, how did you get into chair making?
My name's Charlie Ryland, and I'm currently living up in New Hampshire, but very happy to be down here with y'all and Robell doing this. And I got into chair making and furniture in general because when I was growing up, my dad, he had a little cabinet shop for a while, and I used to work with him, and then in the recession around 2008, that business went under, and I still wanted to do it, and my dad and mom very supportive, but they encouraged me to specialize a little bit more. And so I kind of went on to trade school and started working on furniture and cabinetry all over, and then similar to Robell, really fell in love with the history, some of the stories of where all these really common objects that populate all of our everyday lives and really tell the stories of where we've come from and where we're going. And again, like Robell said, and this exhibit is about, a lot of that gets hidden and changed over time. And so this is an opportunity to kind of look back at what really happened and celebrate the people that built this field in this country is really great.
How did you come up with Hammer and Hope? How did the two of you connect?
We kind of first initially connected via social media. Charlie invited me up to New Hampshire to hang out with him and another chair maker up there. We really hit it off. We really realized like we both not only had a passion for woodworking, but also history and kind of how it connects and the ways in which objects can really tell a story. We became fast friends when we realized that and decided that maybe we should, apply to this grant so that we could really do more intensive research.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And Hammer and Hope is also the name of a magazine?
Yeah, it's a recent one, kind of hero, I think, for both of us. A historian named Robin D.G. Kelly wrote a book called Hammer and Hoe, exploring history in Alabama, the Communist Party, actually. And then they started a recent magazine that was a little more recent and forward-thinking, and it was just an inspiration to kind of both of us as we were thinking about this history and doing this research, and that kind of generated that.
I did a little research on this exhibit, and I know that you all were inspired by the Poynors. Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit about like that family, who they are, and why and how you connected to the story?
So Richard Poynor was an enslaved chair maker in Central Tennessee. He kind of pioneered a style of chair, a version of what's called a ladderback chair, which is a very kind of common, quintessential sort of American style of chair. But he really kind of did his own thing and added a lot of elegance to what was once a very kind of like rigid sort of utilitarian style, kind of a rough aesthetic. And he really popularized the form to what we think of as like a modern ladderback today. But both of us getting into this field and getting into chair making didn't hear about him until just a few years ago. It's one of those stories that was kind of hidden and obscured because now we have, his form is popular, but the story of the man who pioneered it was completely lost.
It's a style of furniture that's incredibly common. It's very pervasive, the ladderback, it's everywhere. But it's something that, going to trade school, I never saw and I never heard talked about really. And I grew up in Idaho, again, from just a regular working family, and a lot of the furniture that I would see when I was in school or working with clients was essentially me and it never felt comfortable in the same places. It would have never looked good in the homes that I grew up in or the places that I live now. And I don't look good in those places where it does feel good. But these chairs, which are so common, they're comfortable and they represent a lot about everything that I love and where we've come from. And so I've just always been interested in learning more, and then to find out kind of the incredible story of people like the Poynors, again, enslaved craftspeople who worked so hard to pioneer this and then have been completely erased from the conversation. And the story just made it feel like an absolute no-brainer to want to dive into that and learn as much as we could about it, and then put that out there so that other folks could get as inspired by it as we were.
Wow. Well, I will tell you, you look fantastic here on the Asheville View.
Thank you.
What do you want people to take away from this exhibit? What do you want us to learn?
I think I want people to walk away with the understanding that so much of American history is erased, and a lot of that erasure is replaced with myth. And I think that's so foundational to America. And even in 2023, you still have school systems in this country that are fighting a more honest portrayal of our nation's history. And I think it's sad that that's happening. And we hope that in our small way, in our field, we can do a lot of important reparative work to tell a more accurate history of our field.
I couldn't agree more. The only thing I'll add is, we work in a field that's supposedly historically based. A lot of it is reproduction work. A lot of that research is entirely based on history. But when you read it, it will point blank say that they can't find or identify the makers of most of these objects, or they'll curate it to a very narrow set of things, like most of it will come from the Northeast. But when you start to do a little broader historical research, labor history, for example, tells us point blank that 4 out of 5 skilled craftspeople in America before the Civil War were Black. And none of those names seem to carry through in our field. And so it just is a huge shame that something that is supposed to be celebrating and based entirely on history has literally erased 80% of that history and just replaced it with stuff that made people feel better or was made up entirely. So hopefully folks can get a small sense of that huge untapped wellspring of history and connect with that, get inspired by that, feel good about that, and hopefully learn more and teach us more.